Welcome to the Global WarWatch Network. Right now, a new flashpoint is emerging, and it is heating up fast. The U.S. military has begun conducting deadly strikes on ships just off the coast of Venezuela. So you have to ask, what triggered this sudden escalation, and could it ignite a much wider conflict in the Americas? Let's break it all down.
Down in the southern Caribbean, this series of U.S. military actions has put the whole world on edge. Officially, the target is drug traffickers. But, the sheer scale of the military deployment has a lot of people asking, is this really about stopping cocaine? Or are we watching the first move in a much bigger game?
All right, so how did we even get here? It all really kicked off in the fall of 2025, when the waters off the coast of Venezuela basically became a live fire zone for the U.S. military.
And the pace of these operations was just relentless. Within just 1 month, the U.S. carried out 4 separate deadly strikes. It all began on September 1st, with an attack on a vessel that killed 11 people. That was quickly followed by 3 more attacks, each one adding to the casualty count. This was a really rapid and lethal escalation, the kind of thing the region hasn't seen in over 30 years.
And let's just talk about that human cost for a second. In a little over a month, the death toll from these operations hit 21. It's so important to remember, these weren't arrests. These were lethal strikes carried out by the U.S. military, which, as you can imagine, immediately raised some very intense questions about the rules of engagement.
To really get why this is happening, we need to look at the new framework the Trump administration created to justify these actions. It's a fundamental shift, both in the language they're using and in their whole legal posture.
It started with a change that seems symbolic, but it is incredibly powerful. By executive order, the Department of Defense was given a secondary name, the Department of War. Now, this isn't just semantics. The move from defense to war was specifically designed to signal a major shift, away from that post-World War II defensive posture to a much more aggressive, preemptive doctrine.
And this quote from the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, really captures the new philosophy perfectly. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. It's a blunt declaration that the administration is prioritizing decisive, violent action over established legal norms.
So here's the crucial legal move they made. The administration formally told Congress that the U.S. is now in a non-international armed conflict with drug cartels. By doing this, they effectively recategorized cartel members. They're no longer criminals entitled to due process. Now they're unlawful combatants who can be targeted and killed on a battlefield.
As you can imagine, this new legal framework immediately ignited a fierce constitutional debate. The administration claimed it had all the authority it needed, but critics saw a really dangerous overreach of presidential power.
And this brings us right to the central question that has completely dominated the conversation from Capitol Hill all the way to the United Nations. Are these strikes actually legal?
The administration's justification really stands on 4 key pillars. First, they're citing the president's power as commander-in-chief. Second, they're framing the drug crisis as a direct assault on the American people. Third, they're leaning heavily on their designation of cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And finally, they're arguing that all this makes these strikes a necessary act of national self-defense.
But the counter-arguments are just as forceful. Critics, and that includes legal experts and members of Congress, are calling these strikes extrajudicial killings that violate international law. They argue the president bypassed Congress, violating the War Powers Resolution. And a key point here is that just designating a group as an FTO doesn't automatically give you the authority to use military force against them. This all led to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar introducing a resolution to try and terminate what she called unauthorized hostilities.
All of this brings us to a bigger, more fundamental question. When you look at the scale of this military deployment and the huge political risks, is the primary mission really just about stopping a few drug boats?
And this is exactly why so many are skeptical. A typical U.S. counter-drug deployment in the Caribbean might involve 1 or 2 ships. The current force? We're talking 8 warships, over 5,000 personnel, and at least 1 nuclear-powered submarine. As many analysts have pointed out, that is a massive amount of firepower for just stopping drug boats.
This level of pressure absolutely raises the specter of regime change in Venezuela, and with it, that famous warning from former Secretary of State Colin Powell, the Pottery Barn Rule. Basically, you break it, you own it. If U.S. actions lead to the collapse of the Venezuelan state, Washington becomes responsible for the aftermath, a massive humanitarian and security crisis that it would then own.
And adding another layer of mystery to all this,
is the appearance of this ship, the MV Ocean Trader. It's what they call a ghost ship, a floating sea base for special forces that operates completely off the public grid. Its presence suggests that there could be covert operations underway, or at least being prepared, that go well beyond simple drug interdiction.
So where does all of this lead? Well, this intense pressure campaign has put Venezuela at a critical crossroads, with 3 very different and incredibly high-stakes potential outcomes.
Let's break down these 3 potential paths. First, the status quo continues. Maduro stays in power, but under intense, sustained U.S. pressure. Second, you have a prepared transition, where a unified opposition could step in and lead a stable, democratic change. But then there's a third, much more dangerous path, a chaotic collapse. If the Maduro regime falls without a credible government ready to take its place, the result could be a power vacuum and a humanitarian crisis far worse than anything we see today.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question. Are these strikes just a limited operation, or are they the very first step toward a wider war? As this crisis continues to unfold, you can be sure the entire world is watching the Caribbean, waiting for an answer. Thank you for your time. We really value your perspective, so please share your thoughts in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Global WarWatch Network. And hey, while you're at it, join our community on social media. All the links are provided in the description.